Victoria Devine, welcome to Business Not As Usual. It is beautiful to see your smiling face today.
It is so good to see you as well. Thank you for taking the time to hang out.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you here with us today because I think one of the things that people have really struggled with through this time, that is 2020, is finance and all things money and revenue and cash flow. And you are the queen of
Yes.
all of this. So I'm really grateful and really looking forward to speaking to you today. So let's kick off. Can you tell me a little bit about you and Zella and She's on the Money podcast?
I can, of course, do that. So, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Victoria Devine, and I am the director of Zella Wealth, a financial advisory practice based in the heart of the Melbourne CBD. And I also run a podcast called She's on the Money, which has now become a financial literacy course or a financial literacy community per se, including like an online course and like a whole heap of resources for people to up their game when it comes to all things finance.
Wonderful. And I think one of the great things about talking to you is having had businesses myself for almost 19 years is so often as creatives and founders and business owners and leaders, we forget about finance, and it's one of the most important things. So,
100%.
small business are the lifeblood of the economy, yet they're some of the people who've been hit hardest this year, especially during COVID. What are some of the things that you've seen with your clients?
Look, I'm seeing a lot with clients. I'm seeing clients who are thriving during this time. So a lot of clients who had online businesses managed to pivot and actually change into being that as their, primary, are doing really well. But then I'm really feeling for my clients who have hospitality-based businesses and are not able to actually, thrive as well as they used to, or hospitality businesses that aren't actually able to function at all. So some of them have been able to go online and others have just had to shut down during this time. So it's very varied what's happening with clients. But I'm also seeing clients who are starting businesses during lockdown and absolutely thriving, which is really exciting as well.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. Are there any particular trends you're seeing in terms of industries that are ripe for disruption, or industries that are, people are jumping into now and actually doing quite well in?
E-commerce, obviously, only because that, as someone in Melbourne, maybe my opinion's a little bit skewed because that's all I've got at the moment. I feel like, obviously handmade goods such as like face masks and stuff have really taken off, but even just like beauty products that are really well marketed online and, companies that are doing really well. I've got a couple of wine companies that are doing incredibly well because they're doing like gift packs online that you can purchase for, I don't know, a discount and get a six pack as well as like a partner cheese board. So I'm seeing a lot of companies who are also collaborating with like for like businesses, and I'm finding that so exciting, and it's so lovely to see, if that makes sense.
It's so nice to see your positivity radiating through the screen after so many weeks of lockdown. Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. I feel so lucky that I still am able to do stuff like this. It's keeping me sane, Lisa.
I'm sure a number of your clients were in traditional bricks and mortar businesses. So, are there any great examples or case studies you can share about how people have digitized through this time?
Yeah, I do. I actually have a couple of clients who have really pivoted. I've got a couple of clients who are in situations where they were eateries close to the Melbourne CBD heart. So they've never really needed an online presence because foot traffic has always been enough for them. And being establishments that have never needed an online presence or to really establish a proper website, this was massive for them. And they've now branched out into doing online cooking classes, and they've got these boxes that you can have delivered during the week. So on Friday night you can actually join them on Zoom for a cooking class with the head chef and eat what they eat and cook along, which I think has been really, really great. And I know that they were really stressed about being able to provide for their staff during that time, but all of their wait staff and people who used to be front of house have now pivoted into being able to pack boxes and help out with online deliveries and stuff like that. So everyone is still employed and they are still making the same revenue that they were before. There was a lot of worry at the very start of COVID while they were getting this up and running, but I think seeing them pivot and really, I guess, go with the flow and know that maybe this won't last forever because not everyone wants to do Zoom cooking classes for the rest of ever, but it's such a trendy thing at the moment to be able to do that while none of us are allowed to leave our homes.
And I think that's the beautiful thing. I mean, there are definitely some silver linings for people who've kind of really, dug deep and been innovative. So that's really beautiful to hear. I want to ask you a bit about cash flow. I'm
Yes,
sure you're
cash flow is queen.
Cash flow is queen. And I know that so many of my small business friends who I've spoken to have really struggled with cash flow. I'd love to get your opinion and some tips and tricks and strategies around how do we find additional revenue streams and how do we cost cut?
Yeah, I think that cash flow is so underrated. And as a small business, I'm very lucky in that that's obviously my bricks and mortar, like they're the things that I'm really good at that I'm bringing to life in a business. So I've been very lucky that from the start, that's always been something that I've understood. But I meet so many small business owners and people who are in situations where they're starting up and they're like, oh yeah, I just keep a track, I keep a budget. And I just think that that is honestly not enough. You need to know what's coming in and what's going out and reviewing that on honestly a monthly basis and going through and being like, what do I need? What do I not need? And when you say cost cutting, I think there's something really stereotyped, I suppose, when it comes to business. Like they think that the more hands on deck, the bigger the business and the better the business. And I think that, that sounds nice, but in reality, the more people you have, the more risk you're carrying, the more cost it's going to be, the more everything that you're going to be paying for. So where you can, making as lean a business as possible. It's kind of sexy. Like there's something really good about a sexy cash flow that, is quite high and you don't have heaps of outgoings. But when it comes to cutting costs in a business that already exists, I think it's just about that, that concept of like lifestyle creep that happens in business as well. And the longer you've been in business, the more that the costs kind of creep up, and you might have a couple of subscriptions here and there that you used to subscribe to that you don't get a lot of value out of, but you've forgotten to cancel. Or you might get flowers every week in the office, but during COVID you've got no clients coming into the office. It's things like that that we can safely cut, that you go, is this actually providing a heap of value to my business or not, and how do we get rid of that, while always making sure that we're getting a better deal. Just like we should be checking our car insurance every single year, you should be checking your business insurance and every business cost that you have, so that we can really review that and make sure that every time you are, going to sign on something, is that the best deal that you can get at that point in time? Because it doesn't matter how big your business is, like cash flow is queen, and you need to make sure that that is always the priority, because that's what's going to keep your business alive in the long term.
I think it's really important, and bigger isn't necessarily better. And I've certainly experienced that when I, built very, very quickly and I took my eye off the ball. And I went from being extraordinarily intimate with my data and understanding it within an inch of its life, and suddenly I didn't. So are there simple steps that people can actually follow on a monthly basis with rigor to ensure that there isn't that cost creep?
100%. And what you're talking about is my favorite activity, which is also the easiest activity for small business owners to do, because honestly, it takes absolutely no talent to print out your bank statements and pick up 2 different colored highlighters and highlight those costs that you definitely can't change, like rent and electricity bills and IT costs, and then the discretionary things that you could potentially think about. And so they're the flowers, they're the subscriptions, they're, the beautiful business cards that you potentially don't need, and all of the other things, and kind of do a business audit, like do your own credit card audit and bank account audit, go through it and just highlight those things and really ask yourself, do we need these to function as a business? And also really understanding, you don't have to get rid of them. Like if you've done your bank account audit and you're like, no, Victoria, I want fresh flowers every day, I'm here for that, but I want you to be making that as a conscious decision. I don't want you to be making that as just like a thing that happens and you kind of haven't been on top of it. Like you were saying, like you need to be across your data, you need to be really intimate with it, and you need to know, okay, well, fresh flowers cost me $80 a week, and that's my choice to spend that cash flow on that instead of something else. And I think it's something really empowering if we can go through that and also just highlight, what are the bare basics of running my business? Like if everything hits the fan tomorrow, like it has done for many of us during this COVID period, what are the things I could get rid of reasonably, really quickly, to increase cash flow in the short term?
Okay, so there's lots of ways to save money, which is great. Can we talk about additional revenue streams? I'm kind of the queen of building a robust, future proofed ecosystem. So, are there ways for people to pull in additional revenue that they might not have previously thought about?
Yes, there absolutely are. I feel like you're really good at this. So I don't know why I'm being asked, but I think it's one of those things where you just sit down and work out what you're really good at. Like, who are your clients? Who are we servicing here? Is there something that is additional that you could add on as a plus to your clients that are already buying from you and already love your brand? And I think that that's a really important thing to consider. For example, I've got these clients that, I was referencing before who are in situations where they're now doing these boxes of home delivered meals. They've now added on an entire drinks line, which I think is really powerful because the client's already there purchasing something that you arguably already wanted, and it's a value add to the experience that you're having. So it makes sense to add something like that on. Wouldn't make sense to sell, bath products to that client because, it doesn't actually align. But I think it's really important to have a good reflection of like, what does the average client look like? And for me, adding on additional products, like you want to make sure that you are really good at it, because more products sometimes doesn't necessarily mean better products. It sometimes means more overheads and more manufacturing costs and, less cash flow, when in reality, maybe you could have stuck with one. I think that a lot of people also often put too much pressure on themselves when they are launching a business to have, this massive suite of products that, will blow the socks off everybody, when in reality, I've got friends and clients who have recently launched businesses during COVID who, only have one product, but they do that one product incredibly well, and that kind of becomes the showcase. So additional revenue streams are obviously incredibly important. And I think that, there are a lot of things that people can do. For example, you could add a subscription service that gets reoccurring revenue into your business, is really powerful. Maybe if you are a business owner and you've gotten really good at one product and marketing and branding that and, putting it out to market, run masterclasses on how you as a small business run that business. And I think that, if you've created a brand that people love, people will flock to something like that as well.
I love that. Now I'm going to have a bit of fun with you if it's okay. I'm going to turn it
Of
on you
course.
for a sec rather than your
Oh,
clients, because I suddenly thought you just mentioned to me about the ecosystem. I think you're the queen of building ecosystems as well. So just by way of demonstration, it might be interesting for people viewing this to actually understand how you've put your business together, what services you offer, how you've kind of branched out into podcasting. So can you talk through your
oh my
particular
gosh.
revenue streams from clients to consulting to podcasting and where that all lays? Because I think that might give people a really great working example.
Yeah. And I think that it's so funny because sometimes when you look back on it, and on your own journey, you go, this makes so much sense. But at the time, I had felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing what felt was right. But essentially, I started Zella now 5 years ago, and we were a financial advice firm at the time. We also did mortgage broking and accounting, and we were kind of a full service financial advisory firm. And my clients would often come in, and because I am a young female, I'd often have other young female clients, and they'd just go, Victoria, no one's ever explained finance to me like this. It just makes so much sense. Or it's not overwhelming, or you're not intimidating, or you're not condescending. More people need this. And so I kept thinking, more people do need this. Like, this is something I want to do. So I branched out into a workshop called She's on the Money under the Zella umbrella. And I used to do that with lawyers and, bigger corporates around Melbourne. And then I was like, oh, I really want people to connect and I really want people to be a part of this. How do I, extend that journey? And that journey started with a Facebook group. So I started with an online community, and people who were in those workshops were invited to join my online community. And then from there, we actually had people add their friends, and they'd say, no, like all the questions and answers in this community make so much sense to me. And all of our, friends would get lots of value out of this. Is that okay if we add them? Of course, like the more the merrier, right? And then I asked them what they wanted to do, and they said, can you do a YouTube channel? Can you do video? I was like, oh my gosh, no, not yet. And I mean, I know this is video, but I've thankfully grown a little bit since then. And I thought a podcast is something that's non-intimidating. And that workshop kind of became something on its own. And I think it was really important for me at the time to, see what was really popular and then see how that grew out to become its own business. Like, that was never the intention, but I think it was the organic growth and, you know, the engagement of people who were around me and the engagement of, you know, the community that were, you know, loving the content that we were putting out, that I kind of knew that a podcast down that line would at least fly really well with the community of a couple of thousand that we'd created. I thought, all right, well, this is absolutely worth the crack. And now we have a community of nearly 100,000 people on that online platform. We have 3.5 million downloads on our podcast, and we're the biggest podcast or business podcast in Australia now, which is insane. But yeah, we kind of just grew it that way. But along the way, it made a lot of sense to really refine the offerings that we had and just be good at the things that we were good at. So I've kept a really lean team now. We went from, you know, being a full service accounting firm to now having no accounting. And we just do financial advice, but we only do holistic clients. And we have a really great referral board where I've got a number of friends and people that I really respect in the industry that I will send people to, because I just want our business to be really good at the things that we're really good at. And if there's anything that I'm not super inspired by, we just don't do it, because I want, you know, the entire business to shine. So for me, that's financial literacy and she's on the money, as well as wealth advisory.
Thank you for unpacking that so eloquently. I think it's really important because so many people that I come across and you would come across just get used to one business modality. They have a bricks and mortar, whatever it happens to be, or they have just one digital platform. And I always say you can slice and dice in multiple ways and leverage according to whatever your community wants. And I think that's really important, especially this year, about future-proofing your business, because we never know what's going to come at us. So that makes it easier to diversify, pivot, change, be where your customers want them on a platform you want them at a time they want you. So thank you so much for unpacking that. Delving into some of your customers or clients then, are there any other specific things that you have seen where people have really diversified in a great way that was maybe unexpected to you previously?
I've seen a lot of these clients, and I obviously can't tell you exactly who they are, but I've seen a lot of these clients pivot into different areas to become business owners in themselves and use the platform that they've got to create businesses for the customer that they have already attracted. And I think that some of them have been incredibly intelligent in doing that and being responsive to what their community wants, instead of putting something in front of their community and saying, well, I'm an influencer, buy it. They've more gone to the community like, what do you want from me? And for a couple of people, that's been cosmetics. And for other clients, that's been sleepwear. And I just think it's really interesting to see why that person was flourishing in the first place, and then see them really take that and make it their own and just go, you know what, who knows how long this is going to be, you know, a popular thing. Influence marketing, we're not sure how long it's going to last. Podcasting, like, is that always going to be a really, you know, good area to be in? And they're actually creating their own, I guess you could say, bricks and mortar stores and businesses as their, you know, as their stable form of income. And I just think anyone can do it if they really want to become a small business owner. You just need the right people around you. But it's really inspiring seeing, you know, people come up with these great ideas and then watching them bring them to life.
Thank you. And I love what you said just then as well. It's so simple, and it's something that people often overlook. It's just ask your community. Ask people what they want from you and then, you know, produce it. And I think that there's something really simple and really beautiful in that. And with social media these days, there's that real-time feedback loop where you can ask people and they'll tell you.
100%. And I think that that's really important to understand as well. And whilst, you know, my community were asking for video, a number of them also said, oh, a podcast. And when I said, hey guys, I'm not actually comfortable doing video, would you be okay with the podcast? They were all like, yes, please. And that really guided how we put together our content, because I said, well, what would you want on the podcast apart from financial information, which in my opinion at that time could have been really dry. So many of them were saying, oh, we want to hear other people's money stories. You talk about money stories as being a really important of people's, you know, psyche and a really important part of their journey. I want to hear other people's, like, where have they come from? Where are they going? How do they earn money? So yeah, great. Let's make that a really big part of the podcast. And now arguably that is one of the reasons people listen along. So I think that understanding your client is the most important thing that you can do. And I think I've told you this before, Lisa, but I have I guess, ego or a person that I'm looking at when I think of new products. And, I've created this persona and what my perfect client looks like. And I think the second you, as a business owner, can understand that you don't need to be everything to everybody, but you need to be everything to that one somebody that you're selling to, I think that that's really important, because then they'll keep coming back. They will adore your brand. It doesn't matter if everybody doesn't love it, because you're never going to be everything to everyone. But the second you realize who your perfect persona is and what your perfect client is.
It's something that I'm most passionate about. So just to build on that a little bit, it's about creating an avatar. And I always look at what does your ideal client, what shampoo do they use? What do they do when they get up? What car do they drive? What technology do they use? And you go throughout all of their buying habits and everything that they do. And that also opens up a whole opportunity for collaborations and partnerships. And I'm very, very big on that. So it's a really great point you make. Where do you see the opportunities and changes leading forward out of this phase that we're currently in?
Prior, so many businesses didn't need an online presence, but I think that engaging experiences brought to life online, there's so much more of an opportunity there. And there's just so many more doorways that have opened up for even just businesses looking for staff. Like, I'm even considering it now. Prior, I thought it was really, really important for my entire team to be able to come together and sit together in a meeting room. Whereas now, with Zoom and having experienced Zoom and, actually been essentially forced into living our lives on Zoom, which I know everyone listening to this is probably going to be able to relate to, it's really important to be in a situation where we can actually bring that to life and go, all right, well, it wasn't the best time, but what I did learn is it doesn't matter if I have talent who are living in a different state who join my team, because we can connect with them. They can work from home. I think that flexible working hours are going to become, more normal. And I'm seeing a lot of businesses saying, the second we can get back in the office, that's exactly where we'll be. And I get that. But for me as a business, I think being able to be more flexible and actually bring the right talent on, no matter where they're located, is such an opportunity and such a good thing for business. And, clients now are very used to connecting with people online. Whereas previously, even for me as a financial advisor, like, oh, no, I need to see you in person for a financial advice session. But now saying, oh, okay, it's via Zoom. Nobody blinks an eyelid. And I think that that's so special, because we can connect with, our perfect avatar all across Australia and even the world now, as opposed to maybe feeling limited by it before.
Okay, so let's drill down on that from a financial perspective. I think you know that I had a bricks and mortar office for 17 years, and in April 2018, I decided to decentralize my entire team. And at the time, people sort of looked at me like, are you crazy? And I started speaking all over the world about decentralization and utilizing technology, and it wasn't the norm as it is now. But I've since noticed that productivity is up for me, efficiencies are definitely up, my profitability is up. So what are you seeing from a cost-cutting perspective and, moving forward, making things much more productive and efficient financially?
Yeah, Lisa, we all knew you were ahead of your time, but you're just proving it now to everybody. I think it's incredible. Rent at the end of the day for businesses is so expensive. And the more staff you have, the more overheads you have. It's not just paying rent, it's their desk space, it's their technology, it's the increase in internet costs, it's the additional teas and coffees in the kitchen. All of these things add up. And I think that it is such an opportunity to have people working from home, and people are more productive when you give them the lifestyle that they, adore. Nobody wants to spend an hour and a half in their car getting to work each and every single day and then spending another hour and a half on the way home. It's just not, in my opinion, the way of the future. And I just feel like people are more productive. And for me, even when I look at my team, we would, get to work, start smashing out our days. We were still productive, but I don't think we ever connected properly. We'd always have a quick coffee together or run down to the cafe. But now, 10 a.m. every day, you best believe our entire team is on Zoom and we are saying, hey, how's your day? And everyone's like, oh, nothing's happened, Victoria, we're in lockdown. But we actually connect and we talk about like, well, what client have you got? And there just seems to be this really nice level of structure that we've implemented, that everyone in the team has said, hey, when we get back to the office, do you think we can still do our 10 a.m. team catch-ups so that we can get across what everyone on the team is doing, what I'm doing, what my day looks like, and just sharing that, because we end up being far more productive and able to actually add more value to our clients. For example, yesterday I was speaking to one of my team and they said, oh, XYZ client, I was talking to them about financial advice. They're thinking about, getting a home loan at some point in the future. And then someone else on my team said, oh, actually, I've got a really great, webinar coming up with a broker. Why don't you invite them along to that? And so that client is now going along to that. They're super excited about it, but they wouldn't have spoken about it had we not had that catch up. And I think that it's just creating really great connections. And yeah, we weren't doing that pre-lockdown, so it's added heaps of value.
So do you think you'll personally go back to an office?
We will go back to an office. One, because commercial leases are very long and I still have one. But two, I think it's something that, when it comes to finances, it is really special. Like, to be let into somebody's financial life, I think for me is really, really important. And to be honest, I do well in an office. Like, I love going in and seeing my team. I love being social. I love Friday night drinks. I love, grabbing lunch. So all of that stuff I think will be good. But I really don't think I'll go back 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. I think we'll adopt far more flexible policies in terms of, me maybe not turning up to work until that 10 a.m. meeting and going home at 4, and maybe not even working every single day from the office. I think that potentially I'll spend more time at home like I am in my home office now. And I just think the way we work is different. Maybe in a couple of years we might not have an office, but I know that my team really enjoy being close. But the idea that we can grow that team without having to grow out of our office space is really, I know, it just feels like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you. Now, you talked a bit about Zoom and podcasts and webinars. You might have mentioned Shopify. Are there any other particular platforms that you found useful from a technology perspective through this time?
I found LinkedIn really useful, to be honest. I've connected with a number of people on LinkedIn by just shooting them a message and being like, hey, I've just read a little bit about you and your bio, and I'd love to grab a coffee with you. And because most of the people I'm reaching out to on LinkedIn are in Melbourne as well, they're like, oh, yeah, that would be great. Like, let's jump on Zoom and have a chat and a catch up. But I've also found a couple of other productivity tools have been really good for booking us out. Now we are online. There's nobody calling our office and having a chat about booking an appointment. So we're using a couple of booking systems online where clients can go in and just pick a time in my calendar, upload it, book the time in, and it appears in my calendar, and it's honestly perfect. But yeah, I think that for me, it's more about just productivity increases. But for me, productivity has been increased because I'm also living a bit of a different lifestyle than I was before. I used to be at the office at 7 a.m. and I'd be there still at 7 p.m. Whereas now at 7 a.m. you'll find me out on a walk, having a coffee with my partner. And, maybe we won't be able to keep that up forever, but I feel like I'm in such a more productive situation when I get back from that time of, looking after my body.
Really important messaging. Now, jumping to something a little drier,
Yes.
You might be able to give a bit of advice. It's not something that I understand. Government grants, they're obviously changing all the time. And I think small businesses are kind of left wondering, what am I eligible for and where do I find out about this information? Where would you direct people to so that they can stay abreast of what's actually happening?
So I think that it's really important to always check the government-based websites. I know that there are so many blogs and resources and people out there actually, outlining these things, but whether they're correct or not is kind of up for debate. It could have outdated, but government-based websites are always the best place to check for grants. But I'm also finding that online forums, literally LinkedIn, people are posting about it all the time. When you look it up, you can look it up by the hashtags and stuff like that as well and just see what's going on. I think that's probably the best port of call. But then also there are a number of people out there who do grants and grant writing as a career. So if you Google someone in your state or even, have a look around and see if anybody in your connections actually knows someone, there are people who not only, will help you find the grants, but they will help you apply for the grants. And I find that really powerful as well, because if you're a small business and you've never applied for a grant before, the application process can be really overwhelming. And sometimes having someone in your team that can help you get through that is really helpful.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you. I know I feel like for small businesses, often there's so much overwhelm of information. So that's really
I
great
know. And
advice.
there's so many great grants out there at the moment as well. And I think it's really important to not be, I don't know how to say this too eloquently, but never feel like you're too good for something. Like, I don't care how good your business is. Like, if you need a grant or something along those lines, like, definitely put your hands up. Put everything into that grant application, because that is cash flow for your business that can actually help stabilize things in the long term. And I just think that so many great businesses have applied for grants before, and it's been one of those pivotal moments for them, because often grants have to be spent on increasing your business revenue, or they have to be spent on you developing stuff. And often that's really hard as a business owner to justify. So a grant is a really great way to do that.
Yeah. Now, if there was one single piece of advice that you could give to small businesses right now, what would it be?
I think it's have confidence in the product that you've got and care about your cash flow more. So I think go do your cash flow audits, go do your budget, and actually don't be overwhelmed by it. I think too many small business owners actually stick their head in the sand when it comes to finance because it feels overwhelming. But I promise you, it is absolutely not when you get into it. Like, at the end of the day, you've got a balance sheet. It just needs to balance. And if we can really understand from the get-go, like, what's coming into your bank account and what's going out, like, you are going to be in such a more powerful position. Like, going forward, like, you are in control of every single decision that you make about your business. And it really starts with the small stuff as the foundations.
And I think that's great advice. As a business owner, you can't dig your head in the sand and hope someone else is going to do it. You have to have at least a semblance of an understanding about what a balance sheet is, what a P&L is, what your cash flow looks like. Who do you turn to personally for advice?
Look, I've got a fair few really great mentors. My ex-business partner is still a really great friend of mine and someone that I actually, call up when I need accounting advice. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Can you give me a hand? And I've got a number of other mentors that I've met along the way, whether that was at university or whether it was, while I was working, or clients that I've just really connected with. I feel like the stronger my network, the better I am as a person, if that makes sense. Like, I'm able to bring more value because my network, really fills in the gaps that I don't have. But when it comes down to it, sometimes I just need to call my mum and say, Mum, what do you think I should do in this situation? Because your mum always seems to have really great advice.
Well, I think that is an absolutely beautiful place to end. So, Victoria, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It has been a pleasure as always.
We're about to kick into our live Q&A, so stay tuned.